Sense.
Yes, indeed. And I have to tell you how many of my new friends on our recent trip to Europe, by the way, I have a commercial agreement with Travel Right, with whom we travel, told me how much they enjoy the contribution of Leith Van Onselen each week on this show. Chief Economist at the MB Fund at MB Super, macrobusiness.com.au. It's where we go to get our economic advice, finance updates each day. It's the best around. And Mr. Van Onselen, I hope you're well.
Yeah, good, thanks, Luke. How about yourself?
Very, very well indeed, my friend. Very, very well indeed. And today in the Treasury of Common Sense, we're talking about building your own budget lies. This is a thing, is it?
Yeah, look, I'm going to be a little bit spicy here. Look, a little bit of forewarning. So just last month, the Parliamentary Budget Office, which is obviously run out of Canberra, it's supposed to be independent.
Yep.
They released an analysis showing how changes in the volume of net overseas migration would impact the federal budget balance.
Yep.
And the PBO claimed, so it released this big report, and there was a whole section on migration, and it claimed that the federal budget would improve by around $81 billion over 11 years if we increase net overseas migration by 40,000 annually. So that's 40,000 more than what is forecast in the federal budget and by the Centre for Population.
Yep.
Contrary, it also said that if we cut immigration by just 40,000 annually, it would cost the federal budget $79 billion over 11 years. So this analysis basically said, any cuts to immigration is going to be really costly to the budget, and immigration is really great, you know.
And because it's the Parliamentary Budget Office, you're inclined to say, well, hey, if they say it.
That's right. And so this was obviously reported widely across the entire media, all that sort of thing. We can't cut immigration because, it'll send us broke, blah, 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 all the usual stuff.
Yeah.
And just a few weeks ago, the AFR published an article claiming that One Nation's flagged immigration cuts. So One Nation's basically said they want to reduce net overseas migration to about 130,000, is my understanding. That's about 100,000 less than what's budgeted.
Yes.
And the AFR said that using the Parliamentary Budget Office Build Your Own Budget tool, and that's basically a tool where you can download and you can make changes to immigration, that sort of thing, and it shows you what the impact would be. They claim that if One Nation's immigration policy came in, it would cost the budget $591 billion over 10 years. So that's over $500 billion, right? So it was obviously saying that this would be disastrous economically, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But the thing about this, Luke, is that these figures from the PBO are completely nonsensical. And I'll tell you why they're completely nonsensical, and they're just downright misleading.
Yep.
And there's two reasons for it. First, they ignore the costs on state budgets. And the state governments are the ones who bear most of the cost of immigration because the states are overwhelmingly responsible for infrastructure, for services, all those sorts of things to keep up with the population growth. So therefore, the Parliamentary Budget Office calculates all the fiscal benefits from immigration for the federal government, but it ignores most of the costs.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's downright misleading. Now, the Australian Institute, love them or hate them, about a decade ago when they actually were arguing for lower immigration, they about in 2015 they released an analysis, and they basically forecast. They said that Australia grows by about a Canberra every year, which is about 400,000 people.
Yep.
And if we grow by 400,000, we need 61 extra public schools, so primary schools. We need 2 extra public hospitals. We need 25 aged care facilities. These are just a few of the things they pointed out. So obviously population growth costs a lot of money, and the PBO has not factored in these costs. Now, the second reason why the PBO's figures are absolutely ridiculous is that I actually downloaded the tool and I had a bit of a play around with it. And what it does is for every extra migrant that we get, it basically shows an extra revenue versus cost ratio of 6 to 1, or just over 6 to 1. So basically, every extra migrant we bring in, we get a revenue benefit of $6 for every $1 of cost, according to the PBO.
Yep.
So it's basically just all upside, right? Now, the ridiculous thing is, when you actually look into their figures, it shows that if we increase migration, it has zero impact on public sector wage costs. So it assumes that we will never need any more public servants. So, think about all the people who work at Services Australia and that sort of thing, which is just laughable. Obviously, if we're going to have more people, you're going to need more public servants, etc.
Yes.
He completely ignores that. Here's another thing that's ridiculous, Luke. It actually says that the cost of the NDIS is going to fall with a larger population.
What?
Oh, no, it's nonsensical. So just for fun, I inputted extra 1 million migrants per year for 11 years. So just for fun, I put in 1 million extra net overseas migration above the budget forecast for the next 11 years. So that's basically 11 million extra migrants over 11 years. So that's the equivalent of adding another Sydney and Melbourne of extra migrants.
Brilliant.
The PBO's budget tool generates an extra $2.8 trillion of revenue over 11 years, but only $462 billion of costs.
Oh, wow.
Now, here's the ridiculous thing about it. Despite 11 million increase in the migrant population, the public servant wage bill does not change, according to the PBO. So, hey, you're not going to pay any more public servants or anything like that, so that's a free kick. And here's the other ridiculous thing. The cost of the NDIS actually fall by $3.6 billion over 11 years, despite having 11 million extra people.
Oh, wow.
So here's the thing, Luke. The PBO has just discovered the perpetual NDIS money tree. All we need to do is increase migration to infinity, and the money is going to pour in, and the NDIS is going to be free. Here's my message to anybody who's a journalist or an analyst who's using this tool or tries to report on immigration. Before reporting these numbers as fact, actually look into the numbers and ask yourself, do they make sense? Because they don't make sense, right?
Brilliant.
So I just want to throw a little bit of cautionary shot across the bows here, because I keep reading these articles. Oh, one nation's immigration cuts would cost $500 trillion and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It is a complete myth. It doesn't factor in the cost to the state governments. Doesn't factor in the cost to citizens more generally who've got to pay for extra user charges for toll roads and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it doesn't even factor in the cost to the federal government properly.
Absolutely brilliant. Now this. Now, mate, I'm assuming that the clown of the week is this PBO budget tool, or is it something else?
No. Well, it's sort of related. I've actually got the Australian Treasury.
Okay.
So there was a former senior Treasury official who just left a couple of years ago named David Pearl, and he gave an absolutely brilliant interview on the John Anderson podcast where, among other things, he highlighted the decline in the Australian Treasury, which he claims has become overly ideological, politicised, and no longer follows evidence. And just last week, the AFR published a chart, it was excellent, showing how Australia's recent per capita economic growth was the poorest in 100 years. And basically how Australia is no longer progressing economically when you adjust for population growth. And it was really a shot across the bow of the nation that we've got this extremely poor productivity growth that's now amongst the worst in the OECD, and basically we're not improving as an economy. And financial commentator Roger Montgomery posted a video on social media that actually went viral on basically the state of disaster of the Australian economy, and he quoted these figures and a whole bunch of other ones. And he claimed that one of the things he claimed was that our productivity growth's plunging because we've got far too many bureaucrats and the bloating of the public service, and that's basically crowding out the private sector, which I think we can all agree with. But like a good propagandist for the government, a Treasury spokesman came out and hit back at Montgomery and basically claimed that Australia's recorded faster annual growth than every other major advanced economy, and the economy's great and that sort of thing. When in reality, our productivity growth stinks. It's ranked amongst the poorest in the OECD for a decade. We've had much poorer growth in real per capita household disposable income, which is the leading indicator of living standards. It's badly lagged the OECD average over the past decade. And most of Australia's population growth, I think we can all agree, has been driven by population growth through immigration or excessive government spending, bureaucrats, that sort of thing. And the private sector is completely sick. Now, here's my thing for the Treasury. This is why they're clowns. Instead of trying to shield the government from criticism, how about they actually do a better job of advising the government of how to fix Australia's productivity slump? Because a lot of their advice in a lot of areas is just pure garbage, let's be honest. And it's and the decline in Australia's institutions, not just the Treasury, but a whole bunch of things, is one of the reasons why we're not advancing as an economy anymore. And basically, Australia's become a productivity growthless economy.
You know, there's that thing, isn't there, frank and fearless advice. Where someone in the public service, an expert who's employed in a department, knows their stuff and says to government, hang on, the truth is A, B, C, D, whatever it might be. And look, I don't know if that's still a thing. Is it still a thing, or you just said it doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah, I don't think it does. So I obviously worked at the Treasury. I went
You did?
2003 to 2006, and that was certainly a thing back then. So I used to do, cabinet briefings and that sort of thing on proposed. So I remember writing a stinging critique of the Australia-US Free Trade Agreement back when I was at Treasury, and we were allowed to do it. And it was a terrible agreement, and the government ended up signing it anyway. But I was allowed to write an absolute stinging critique of it and just saying we shouldn't go ahead with this. And that was frank and fearless advice. Now, the government didn't follow through, obviously, but it was allowed. But according to David Pearl, that sort of thinking doesn't really happen anymore in the Treasury, and they're just basically have become a mouthpiece for the government of the day, and basically just there to provide cover for the government.
Yeah, mate. Loved it. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you in a week's time.
Yeah, thanks, Luke.
Good on you. That's Leith Van Onselen, macrobusiness.com.au.